Hey folks, welcome to my world. It's Dominique back here with you. Happy Friday, I almost said Saturday evening, and in fact, happy Saturday in just a moment because we are doing another after midnight episode. It's close to after midnight, okay, don't judge. Now, what we're going to talk about tonight is, again, you guys have been talking about the Reddit forum and how that kind of, and I guess I realized this, but it took you guys to remind me for me to put two and two together and go, you know what, I should incorporate some of that onto my show. You know, how Reddit basically does tend to exhibit certain psychological issues and traits and speak to those traits and those issues that we have discussed on this show. So thank you for that suggestion. I am still going to be doing some of the Reddit reads of the really ridiculous sort of pathological issues. But tonight we're actually going to take it a little bit more seriously. And of course, there's always a lesson to be learned. But let's take it down a notch for tonight, and let's just go ahead and discuss the issue that I wanted to talk with you about on my next show, which, as luck would have it, is also pretty well represented on Reddit, and that issue is gatekeeping. And for those of you who are not aware of what gatekeeping is and what it's about, essentially gatekeeping is, it's what I would call the bread and butter of the constant victim crowd. Gatekeeping is what the perpetual victims of the world are going to do. You're going to hear a lot of these turns of phrase and this terminology with perpetual victims, and sadly with folks who are codependent, who have self-love deficit disorder, and even who have empathy deficits. So it plays into the cluster B scope as well. Now, to give you an example of gatekeeping, I'm going to go ahead and read some of the posts from Reddit and the gatekeeping subreddit. And I think they're just as good as some of the examples I have from people in my life that I've worked with professionally or known personally. So let's go ahead and read some of these. They're already out there. And sometimes I think it's good to use stories that are already out there rather than to tell stories of people, you know, in my life or in our lives, for those of us who do write and do stand-up comedy and, you know, have podcasts and shows and all of that sort of thing. Sometimes it's good to share personal stories. Other times it's good to take a break and to share stories that perhaps pertain to other people and that are already out there. And so that's what I'm going to be doing tonight. So for an example of gatekeeping, there's one particular post that I've scrolled down to here on the gatekeeping subreddit. And this one is rather silly and benign, but it nevertheless is an example of gatekeeping. And this person posts the following, and it's done in sort of a meme form, but here's the text. It only gets cold in Minnesota. That's the title of the post. And then the post itself reads, when other states complain about the quote unquote cold in Minnesota is like negative 41 degrees, they don't even know. And so, yeah, that's an absolute example of gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is, for instance, when you tell your friends on social media about how you're stressed because you have a loved one who's ill, for instance. And, you know, you're saying, hey, can anybody help out? I'm really stressed. I don't know what my outlet is here. And, I just don't know what to do. I'm really stressed. I'm concerned about this person. I don't know what to do. Kind of like, please help / I need to vent. and somebody comes along and says, well, I survived breast cancer and a car crash, and somebody tried to murder me. And it's like, okay, but we're not comparing pain. It's absolutely possible for both of us to have valid and different instances of pain, right? It's possible. We're not comparing pain. I'm not threatening to steal the sympathy from everybody that you feel you're entitled to. I'm just speaking my truth. Like, this is my truth right now. Why are you derailing this conversation? And I think oftentimes the gatekeeping sort of meme, if you will, occurs because of insecurity and because people feel that if you're heard, there's not going to be space for them to be heard. If you're acknowledged or someone else is acknowledged, they're suffering, their pain, what have you. If that's acknowledged, then they feel like, well, there's only a finite amount of empathy to go around. So if your pain's being acknowledged, then that means mine's pushed to the back burner, and that's not acceptable. And I'm sure that you can see here why I mentioned that this lines up pretty well with cluster B personality disorders. But you may have also noticed that I mentioned that gatekeeping is something that folks with a victim mentality do, and folks who have suffered from self-love deficit disorder and or codependency. I suppose they're really technically the same thing. I just think that self-love deficit disorder is a more eloquent way to express what codependency is truly about. But you'll notice it not just with the cluster B folks, but with people who are codependent, who have self-love deficit disorder, with folks who have a victim mentality in life. And you'll notice it because they're truly concerned on some level that if you're acknowledged, if your pain exists, then theirs is somehow diminished. I think that really does play into codependency, self-love deficit disorder, that they don't understand that both of your life experiences, empathy for both of you, compassion and understanding for both of you can exist at one time. And I believe that gatekeeping also shows a rather unhealthy level of competition. Gatekeeping tends to reflect poorly on the person who's doing it. It tends to really show the worst of that person. And unfortunately, this is something that becomes ingrained oftentimes because of family of origin issues, perhaps how the person who is doing the gatekeeping was raised, perhaps the life experience that they have had as they've grown up and lived their adult life. But it's always coming from a place of fear. As Tupac said, you're coming in life either from a place of love or fear. Everyone's always coming from either a place of love or fear. That, to me, that speaks to someone who's coming from a place of incredible fear. That if their life situation is overshadowed, because that's how they see it, by anyone else's life situation, that somehow people are no longer going to see their life situation as valid. And I will say that I happen to believe that for those who struggle maybe pathologically with gatekeeping, I believe that their fearful thoughts may have some merit because some of the time those people in specific are not being truthful or honest about what they've been through. Perhaps they are saying that they survived breast cancer and then a car accident and then someone trying to murder them, like I mentioned before, because they're lacking in the love department, in the attention department. They don't feel that they're getting enough genuine attention, positive attention, gosh, even negative attention from the people closest to them. Perhaps they've formed unstable bonds with their caregivers as children, as babies even, and they've never had that stability of growing up and then functioning as an adult around people who are stable, kind, and loving. So while gatekeeping can come across as silly, and while we can definitely laugh at it in the Reddit forums, because really those are just absolute over-the-top instances of gatekeeping. But, while we can do that, it really does come from a place of fear. Fear of lack, fear of not having enough, fear of not being loved, not being deserving of love. And so when, like I mentioned, when someone, let's say on Facebook says, guys, would anyone be able to come help me out? My dad's really ill, or my husband's sick. I'm stressed. I don't know what to do. I'm really struggling here. I don't have the energy to reach out to everybody individually. Please, if you're available, can you help out? I'm really struggling. That's why you're going to see the gatekeeping sort of responses to something like that. Perhaps someone else had recently expressed a struggle they were going through, and gosh, they noticed that when you reached out and asked for help, you got more likes, more responses, what have you. But is that because you are trying to crap all over them and everything they are, and you absolutely have no respect for them? No. It's because you're really also going through something and you need help too. And it's okay that two of you need help at the same time. It's okay that two of you are stressed out at the same time, right? It's okay that more than one of you are struggling at the same time. And I think what people who do engage in these toxic gatekeeping behaviors fail to realize is that instead of whining about it, instead of looking at it as some sort of a gross competition, they could be helping you and you could be helping them. Like, this could be a mutually beneficial situation. There could even be a learning moment in there somewhere, and perhaps the opportunity for a special friendship or relationship to develop. And by being so lost in their own pain and their own fear, they're unfortunately losing out on that beautiful opportunity. Empathy is always a beautiful thing. Genuine love is always a beautiful thing. Always. Now, as far as, Annie is weighing in on this one. Thank you for that. Yes, you're absolutely right, Annie. Now, quit being naughty and go do something else. Okay, so we've got a gatekeeper right here. She's saying, you guys cannot be paying attention to the person. Like, I need the attention, so pay attention to me, the cat. Hello. We've got a gatekeeper right here, folks, right in my own living room. But you may notice that, like I mentioned, there is some measure of anger, some measure of fear associated even with these gatekeeping behaviors. And so while some of these scenarios do sound ridiculous, and, many of them are, let's try to acknowledge that there is an opportunity for empathy when you see this happening. There is an opportunity for empathy when you see this happening. Now, because I said I'm not going to share a lot of personal stuff tonight, we're going to stick to sort of known public stories about gatekeeping. I am going to stick to my word on that, but I do have my own fair share of gatekeeping stories. And, when in my own life, I will just say this, that when I've experienced gatekeeping, it's almost always been a red flag for some of the relationships I've been in that I discarded or wanted to just pretend I didn't notice at the beginning of those relationships. But that as time wore on, I simply couldn't pretend I didn't notice them anymore. They did become red flags. They did become major roadblocks and major issues. And sadly, they were not roadblocks or issues that I felt I could fix without overstepping my own healthy boundaries. And so there have, suffice it to say, been instances in my life, and I'm sure you can look back and see some examples of that in yours as well, of having to love people from afar and allow people to be let go from your life because of gatekeeping behavior and because of toxic behaviors. And I think that keeping gatekeepers at arm's length, just like keeping toxic people that maybe you have to work with, can't completely cut off your relationship with, if it's a professional or like distant family relationship, I think it's fine to keep those people at arm's length. If you can cut the relationship off completely, great, go for it, do it. But it's not always feasible. It's not always a possibility. So let's go through and read some more interesting Reddit posts from wonderful people who have thought to capture these interesting instances of gatekeeping and post them to the gatekeeping subreddit. Okay, so here's another one having to do with the cold weather. And the person who posts it captions it thusly: "Can't be cold unless your job has you work overnight." And here's what the post actually says: "Unless you worked in negative 40 degrees at 3 a.m. in the morning, I don't wanna hear about how fucking cold it was when you started your car to go to the mall." Well, so again, it's like, yeah, I can understand why that would be a really tough situation. And I'm sure, or at least I hope, that you probably got some sort of extra pay. You were hopefully working a job that was a union job or that was compensated appropriately or making good money. Maybe you signed up for the job. So don't act as if somebody made you go to work in this weather and you had no choice at all, or as if there aren't any other jobs available to you than to work that particular job. And also don't act as if somehow nobody else can ever be cold ever, no matter what, because that's just ridiculous. Something that I think gatekeepers fail to keep in mind, that we should all keep in mind, is the fact that yes, other people can actually experience things that you've experienced. And other people may have a different threshold for cold than you. Like this guy says, he works outside in negative 40 degree weather at 3 in the morning. So maybe he has a higher threshold for cold than somebody who is going to the mall. And also, I highly doubt that everybody who goes out in the cold weather is, quote unquote, going to the mall. That's rather insipid and ridiculous. It's just a silly thing to say or think. And so this is gatekeeping. Let's read through a couple more examples. So some of the other cold weather gatekeepers here, gosh, they're really out in full force in this polar vortex 2019, are saying equally ridiculous things. For instance, "It is not freezing until you are below 0 Fahrenheit. I'd feel sorry for you, but I'm sitting on the eastern shore of Lake Erie in Pennsylvania with a foot of snow expected just tonight." I mean, yeah, that's really cold, But guess what? I'm in Chicago and it's literally just as cold, and I'm looking out the window at a foot of snow right now. So yeah, it's very possible that more than one person in more than one place can experience cold weather that might make you uncomfortable. It's not your exclusive territory. Like, you're fine. I promise. Other people are right there with you. You don't need to alienate everybody because apparently suffering cold and cold weather is your exclusive domain in life, right? And so somebody replied to this original post saying, name redacted, did you just gatekeep being cold? Yeah, I would say that he did just gatekeep being cold. Imagine that, right? And here's somebody. Okay, now this, I feel like this is actually something that was legitimately posted somewhere, and that this was something that was like a real municipal code from, I think it was, you know what, I think it was Chesapeake, Virginia, in fact, as this post says. But some of you may have read about this particular post, and it is labeled, does this count, in this Reddit forum. And then the post follows. Halloween rules per Chesapeake, Virginia Municipal Code. Halloween rules, trick-or-treaters over 12 years old, misdemeanor, fine $25 to $100 and or jail up to 6 months. Trick-or-treating after 8 p.m., misdemeanor, fine $10 to $100 and or jail for up to 30 days. Ooh, wow, that is, yeah, I mean, are we gatekeeping Halloween right now? What, people can't, nobody else can experience Halloween but you, I guess. And they have to experience it the exact way that you want them to, or else they're breaking law and they're going to jail for 6 months. That seems a little much to me. Let's hear what the Reddit community has had to say about this. Well, someone weighs in. I can't understand why people are against teenagers trick-or-treating. Isn't that better than them out causing trouble or underage drinking? And someone else weighs in to that particular comment and says, exactly, I don't care if you're 5, 15, or 50. Candy for you. Yeah, I agree. And someone else weighs in under that, saying, I like you, brother. Yeah, I agree. I like you too, brother. I like you too. And then someone else weighs in with another comment thread saying, imagine getting 6 months in jail for trick-or-treating. Yeah, right, folks? So whoever went ahead and enacted this municipal code apparently was like a major authority in gatekeeping. Like, this is some extraordinary, like gatekeeping extraordinaire stuff. This is pretty incredible. I think you will all agree. Let me know what you think in the comments section. But frankly, if I hear somebody telling me how like trick-or-treating should lead you to be put in jail for 6 months, I may have to have a little talk with you. We may have to have a come to Jesus about that, because wow, this does not seem right. And then under that particular comment, someone else weighs in. What are you in for? I'd rather not say. And then someone else weighs in. A 13-year-old in jail for 6 months for trick-or-treating? Yeah. Right? They're going to be surrounded by all these grifters and sex solicitors and, you know, con artists going, what are you in for? Well, I was trick-or-treating and I'm 13. Oof, boy. Just no on that. So I think that is actually a pretty darn good example of gatekeeping. And then we've got another good post here, and it's labeled by a particular Redditor saying, always trying to keep those of us without diabetes in check. And the actual post says, people who post this that don't live with serious mental or physical illness, you have no perspective. And here's the original post. Him. Hi, I stole your identity. I've been living as you for a week. Me. Blank. Him. Blank. Me. Blank. Him just starts crying. Me hugs him. Hey, it's okay. Him loud crying. Like, how do you even get up in the morning? Me. Shh, I know. It's going to be okay. Yeah, that seems like some victim stuff right there. And it also seems like some fixer behavior, which is concerning. Yeah. It also, I'm really not sure what that has to do with living with diabetes. So I'm not sure. I'm not feeling that. Let's take a couple more here in case you haven't come to a full and complete understanding for goodness knows what reason of what gatekeeping is. Okay, so here's another Redditor who has posted the following Tumblr post or tweet. I believe it might have been a tweet. Anyway, it's captioned thusly, because only women are allowed to like this band. So, a poster on Twitter called Your Name Here posts, or tweets, I should say, I swear to God, if you are a man and have bikini kill tickets while women are left out, you fucking suck. Hashtag women to the front. Hashtag bikini kill. Hashtag dudes back off. Yeah, that's definitely gatekeeping, telling men that they can't like a particular music genre or band because they're guys. That's gatekeeping. Like, that's pretty much gatekeeping 101. Like, this is real basic gatekeeping right here. Okay. And let's find another one, another good one here. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, there are a few here that I'm just not going to read because they are posted on Reddit and are even less appropriate than some of the ones we've looked at before. Oh, here's one posted. Just an adult language warning, folks. Adult language incoming in 3, 2, 1. Okay. Let the UK cut their dicks off. Ooh, gee, yay, no. Okay, but that's what it's captioned. And the actual post that was put into the Reddit gatekeeping forum has a picture of a gun, a machine gun, and it says, ladies, if your guy doesn't know how to shoot a gun, you have a girlfriend. Huh. Okay. So any man who doesn't know how to shoot a gun or want to shoot a gun is just not allowed to be a man. You're literally gatekeeping being a man. Like you're literally gatekeeping manhood. Okay. But you know what? This is not an uncommon thing. There are quite a few gentlemen, and apparently ladies too, out there gatekeeping manhood and womanhood. Who knew? You had to like a certain band to be a woman, and guys can't like that band, and then women obviously apparently can't shoot guns, and you have to be a guy to know how to shoot a gun, and then if you don't know how to shoot a gun, you're not a guy? Whew. Wow, my head is spinning right now. Yeah, so this is some serious gatekeeping stuff. And then somebody else here, wow, this is a real class act, has posted a screenshot of I believe it's a Facebook conversation. Obviously, they've redacted the name because Reddit users are respectful, right? And the post is labeled, talk to me when you need more meds. Name redacted on Facebook posts. Getting old sucks. Prescribed my first pill that I have to take for the rest of my life. And then someone else posts, try a 28-day bleep. We're going to redact the name of that medication. And then the original poster, I believe, chimes in and says, are you gatekeeping needing medicine? So yeah, literally, there are people out there who are gatekeeping, needing medicine. I mean, let's just sit with that for a minute, shall we? So gatekeeping really is something that is the nigh exclusive territory of the perpetual victim, of the codependent person who simply does not have the esteem for themselves that a healthy person should have. And while it can be funny, silly, aggravating, what have you, let's not forget the most important piece of information, if you will, that gatekeeping behavior telegraphs to us. And that is that this person perhaps doesn't have the most balanced personality. Now, we're not talking about physical or mental health. We're simply talking about a likely disordered person, personality disorder versus mental health or physical health. Totally different game there. As we've talked about before, mental health problems and mental illnesses are not personality disorders. And personality disorders are not just passing issues, passing phases that people might be going through. And they're certainly not mental illnesses. So, this is pretty toxic behavior. And if you are noticing gatekeepers in your life or in your sphere, perhaps you should think about what you're seeing. Perhaps you should at the very, very least, make note of it, sit with it, and hold on to that information for later on and just see if perhaps the behavior that you are picking up on could be construed as red flag behavior. And if it is, then, use that tool as part of your tool belt in life and go ahead and make that determination for yourself as to whether or not this might mean that you should end your relationship with this person, or at least keep this person at a distance for your own wellness and your own safety and your own mental wellness and well-being. Gatekeeping behavior is not, I repeat, not the property of healthy, well-balanced people. It's nearly exclusive property of people who are toxic, disordered, or simply extremely selfish. And knowing that that's where someone is coming from and that that's where they're at and what they're about might give you some inside information. It might allow you to avoid making a mistake and allowing this person to be a part of your life when perhaps they don't deserve to be or don't need to be. So something to keep in mind, folks. I realize that some of these posts have included adult language. If that is something you are uncomfortable with, well, hey, we try not to be excessive about it here, but this is an adult show, so if that's something that just absolutely makes you uncomfortable, then perhaps you have a choice to make about whether or not you tune back in. And if you choose to, great, I'm happy to have you. And if you choose not to, that's absolutely okay. You got to do what's right for you. Okay, so that'll do it. Thanks for listening in to this segment or this show. I guess we've really pretty much done a whole episode here on gatekeeping. Feel free to weigh in with your comments, chat, share, it's fair, and be ready tomorrow sometime. I wish I could be more specific, but I have quite a bit of work to do. Be ready Saturday, the 26th. Let's say between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. at some point for a live show. I should be signing in at that point, and we're going to be talking about fixers and how and why you shouldn't be one. Now, what is a fixer, you might ask? Let's briefly get into it. Fixing people, feeling like people are projects, feeling like you always need to help people. Well, those are symptoms of being a fixer. Oftentimes, being a fixer is correlated with being codependent or having self-love deficit disorder. And if you don't feel that that particular shoe fits you, but you still feel that you are or have been a fixer, then perhaps you should listen in, and maybe this will help you to come to some sort of a conclusion about whether or not you continue on that path and whether or not you decide to allow people to be more complicit in their own lives and allow yourself to step back from their lives. I know it can be hard for those of us who are empaths, but I have to say that being a fixer and not seeing the downside to it and not stopping yourself when it's appropriate for you to pull back, well, that behavior is a bit problematic and might potentially even be narcissistic. So let's talk about that. We're not here to blame anybody. We're not here to name call. Nothing like that, but let's talk. I think that my goal here is and always has been to educate and to have interesting and meaningful discussions and to grow as a person, and hopefully we can all grow along together and learn together. So that's what I'm here for. What are you here for? Do you feel like you're learning something? Do you feel offended when I bring up topics that might touch on personal issues that you have? I'm curious to know. Let me know what you think. How has this show impacted or affected you? Do you feel like you're getting good information? Do you feel that you've grown as a person? Heck, I do, and I'm just the one doing the talking. So I hope that you guys do as well. And I really thank you for taking this journey with me, for laughing, crying, and just simply being there to absorb information, even if you don't have an automatic reaction to it. I want to thank you for that. Now join me tomorrow between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, Saturday the 26th. And I'll talk at you then. Be very well, take care of yourselves, and remember that you're not alone.
The hills were smoking.